Good morning everybody, wherever you happen to be on this fine planet that we call home, that we have to call home, that we have no choice about calling home, indeed. Right, you are on a live safari in the morning here in the wilds of the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. And just before I introduce the plethora of skills that are bringing you this live safari, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what that actually means. So, you've all probably heard of the Kruger National Park, world famous park, but the Kruger is part of a much larger conservation area called the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, which is 3.5 million hectares, or about 8 million acres, of wilderness wonderland here between three countries. And it's called a peace park or transfrontier conservation area, which means it traverses a number of borders. So it's 2.2 million hectares of South Africa, about 1.5 million, I'm going to run out of hectares here, about 900,000 hectares in Mozambique, and the remainder north into Zimbabwe, into a place called Gonorozhou. And that's why it's called a Transfrontier Conservation Area, and its name is the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, basically. Yes, so that's where we are. Marvelous to have you along. We are in a little section on the far western sector called Djuma. It's about 900 hectares, and we also traverse just to the west of here 600 hectares of a place called Arathusa. There are commercial safari lodges on the two places where we traverse, but we are operating with just no guests, only you, our wonderful viewers, and of course on the back of this vehicle we have Viam on camera. Good morning, Viam. Viam was commenting at how warm and balmy it feels this morning. It certainly does. It's about 14 degrees apparently Celsius. It feels warmer than that to me. About 57 degrees Fahrenheit apparently. I would put it at least 16 degrees. Anyway, it's not very cold. Viam unusually is not dressed in a variety of warming things, including his grandmother's blanket, which he likes to bring along on game drive, which is quite disconcerting sometimes. On the other vehicle, hieing to the west at great speed, is Brent Leo Smith, and on camera with him the inimitable Andrew the Aardvark. They are going to see if they can find tracks with the Birmingham boys. They were apparently calling out there yesterday evening, so hopefully he will have some luck. There are some buffalo in that area too, so we do know that the Birminghams like to eat buffalo. Tasty things for hungry young male lions are buffalo, and so maybe he will have some luck. I have come into the place where I have had no luck indeed for the last 2 days. I have been looking for Kurula, the queen of Djuma, an 11-year-old female leopard, and I'm hoping desperately to see her. Brent did actually manage to find her on foot yesterday, but it was so thick that it was impossible for him to get a vehicle in there. So we're going to see if we can't get a view of her. Who knows? I hope we'll be lucky. She certainly owes me one, I feel. And lastly, before we get going, in the final control room we have Nikki Austin back from leave, and Tara is also there, and Jess leaves us today to be replaced by Kirsty. So there's a whole lot of different things going on around the place. You are most welcome. Please interact with us while we drive for the next 3 hours. Hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarthTV. We love to hear from you. We want to hear from you. And if you happen to be a new viewer, perhaps you've stumbled over this website, please feel free to talk to us. Anything you like. We'd like to hear from you, and I'm more than happy to answer any queries you have within reason, specifically about this area. Okay, on we go. Viam, are you ready?
Yeah, well.
Okay, good. Right. So, we've come into this area where Kurula was yesterday. I'm going to attempt to try and find her tracks. If we don't find the tracks, I will walk basically straight into where she was yesterday. Leopards do move quite a lot in the night, so I suspect she's probably not exactly where she was yesterday. But she may have been lucky and made a kill, in which case she will be around. Bumpy roads, so don't spill your coffee. Viam, where's your coffee today?
It's right here.
Oh, Viam does actually bring coffee on drive. There it is. He's now having a sip. He also normally brings a sort of picnic of junk food along with him too.
Yeah, bananas there.
And just, is that all you've got? A banana? Oh dear. And just in keeping with our sort of leopard tracking, there was a magnificent sighting yesterday which you had with Scott, and perhaps some of you, I'm not sure if you were all watching at that time of the day, but Scott had an incredible sighting of Sindile and Shadow, Sindile being Karula's grandson, and therefore obviously his mother Shadow being Karula's daughter. And he had them interacting and playing with each other, and she actually couldn't find him for a while and was calling apparently quite desperately around the Treehouse Dam area. And I'm extremely jealous of that sighting, I must say. When you see me looking over the side of the vehicle, what it means is that I'm looking for tracks on the road. It's not because I have a twitch. And I look to the right, of course, because I can't see over the left. That's Liam's job. And I believe also that Sindile, or at least Shadow, was found with the help of a giraffe. A lovely old bull giraffe who's been hanging around that area for the last few days. Alright, so while we look through here, we're going to head across to the inimitable, irascible and highly enthusiastic Brent Leo Smith. He is on the trail, I hope, of some lions, and so we'll pop across to him, get an update, and I will hopefully see you later with some good news. See you just now.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Brent, and I'm going to be your guide on the sunrise safari, and Andrew is our cameraman today, and I'm sure James has dealt with the rest of the introductions. So James is working the far western sections. I'm right on our eastern boundary, following up on a report of the Birmingham boys who were a little bit further to the east last night, and hopefully they've come west and south towards us. So I will keep you updated. I'm listening carefully to the Game Drive channel, and hopefully we do get some tracks here. But it is a bit of an overcast morning, as we can see. But I think, judging from the clouds, it is going to burn off. Sorry, my earpiece is just falling out here. I think it is going to burn off quite shortly, and hopefully we have some lions too, basking in the brilliant morning light a little later. So if we don't have any success as we are cruising along the eastern boundary, oh, there's some elephants up ahead and they're running at high speed. Let's go see what's happening there. Just saw a young elephant charge at very high speed across from Torchwood into Djuma, so we're going to go have a look there. What might have disturbed them? Didn't look very relaxed, so we are going to stop a little bit further away and see what's going on before we go right in there. Coming up to that area, I saw that elephant dash across. Probably just beyond this termite mound on the left. There we go. I think it might have just been a youngster playing. Got the rest of the herd here on the left. Going to stay a little bit further away from them to start. I just judge the reaction to the the herd. And that's possibly the reason why that youngster was running. And we've got a young elephant bull off to the right moving in towards us. And they can be a little bit full of nonsense around the edge of the breeding herds, and that's why the cows generally tend to push them off to the peripheries. I can hear quite a lot more elephants than we can see. Just roll forward a little bit. He does look like he's got a bit of attitude in his walk this morning. Very nice even tusks on that young bull. There we go, you can see he's got quite a bit of swagger, so to speak, in his step. He's walking straight towards us. I'm trying to see whether he is in must. It doesn't look like it. I think he just could be being a little bit full of nonsense. Hello, mister. Why are you harassing the ladies? Don't start with me. Yes, you just behave yourself. So you can see how close he is to us. And very important when you're this close to elephants to keep your voice nice and calm. Obviously, if he decides to start being naughty, I'll raise my voice a little bit. But now he sort of had to stop because he was expecting us to dash away from him because he's so big. And it's very important to just stay calm when you're this close to elephants. He almost looks a little bit sheepish now. Here we go. We won the standoff. He's going to go on to harass someone else. I love that when they walk like that. It's almost the same, similar sort of walk to the water walk when they get excited as they head towards a drinking spot. There we go, there's a little Cape turtle dove on the ground. There we go. So there are elephants off to the right of him and to the left of him. I can just hear them. I can't really see the ones off to the right. Oh, I can just make one up. It's amazing how this, especially on a grey morning like this, that they disappear into the grey bush. And Andrew, just come up to me here. Let's see if anyone can. You can just pick up the movement if we go straight along the line of my hand. And it's hard to believe that there is about a 4-ton female elephant right there, and we can't even see her through the bush. I'm just going to roll forward a little bit. A little bit easier to make her out there. So you can just make out the movement and that little glimmer of white ivory. So the big bull, well, not too big, he's probably around 20 years old, but he's going to be a very big elephant. You can see how tall he is already. Almost looked like he was going to wander off to where that female was, but he stopped. So while we're sitting with these elephants, we've had a very interesting comment about one of my favorite elephants that we see regularly here, and I actually do have a slight suspicion that this might be the herd. I saw a female through the bush with very long tusks, very even tusks off to our left, and we definitely don't have a look there now. But JJ says they're here only for one reason only, for a wrinkly bottom sighting. Hopefully I can oblige JJ. Let's just see. I think there's going to be might be some interesting interaction with this young bull and some of the other females around here. This is a very big herd, and you can see there's a cow with a calf, and that bull's about to approach her now. And here we go, harassing them a little bit. And that's why I think when I saw that youngster sprinting across the road, it could be from harassment from this bigger bull. Let's roll forward a bit again. So this is actually a much bigger herd than I initially thought. They're very spread out. And you can see this poor female's looking a little bit harassed, and that's definitely from that bigger male. It's okay, madam. A nice little one with her. You can see the little guy just, and we can hear quite a few fork-tailed drongas chirping around. And he's lifting his nose, smelling us to see what we are. There we go. Mom's also giving us a good sniff. The periscope trunk that Eddies use very often when they're smelling things. So you do have to be sometimes a bit careful, especially if there's a young bull who's being quite boisterous around. It can upset the other elephants. And so far, I mean, she's alert. You can see her ears are out. She is smelling us, but no really untoward signs of aggression yet. Looks like quite a young mother, which also means she might be a little bit more alert and whatnot. Could be one of her first babies. And you can see she'd rather go a little bit further away from us, create a bit of distance and space. So in this situation, we stay right where we are. We're just going to let her pass. You can see her tail's up. It's another sign that she might be a little bit distressed. And you can see head up like that in front of us. And she's doing that oblique angle move away. So still keeping an eye on us, but creating distance between us and her. Well, that big bull, I think we're going to go have another look at now. Hanger's trap on his tusk, and Pear on Twitter is wondering, is this a sort of you better watch out strategy? No, Pear, I think it's more, oh, I don't know what to do now strategy. So if he wanted us to look out, he'd be lifting his head, making himself look bigger, possibly shaking his head at us, and just warning us that he's a big, strong animal and that we shouldn't try and mess with him. That was sort of more sort of displacement. He didn't really know what to do now, so he's like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and put my trunk on my tusk. Guys, I'm just going to come in here because I think this bull's going to harass a few more females around here, so we're not going to get too close, but we're going to stop where we can see, and I can already see one of the females is lifting her head at this young bull. So you can see there is a little bit of annoyance from this female to the left. As soon as that bull moves in, she tries to move away. Although he seems to be behaving himself at the moment and just having a snack. Here we go. Hello, old lady. And again, you notice that very distinct displacement behavior, keeping an eye on us, but still walking off at a slightly oblique angle to create a little bit more distance. So I think in general this would be a very nice relaxed herd, but this young bull is causing them. You can see they try and move away quite quickly from him. Hello, little lady. So they're moving off in the general direction that the rest of the herd are. So we're going to have a quick closer look at this young boy, and then we'll go see if we can find the rest of the herd, and hopefully Mr. Wrinkly Bottom is with them. So when we first saw him, he definitely had quite a step to him, a bit of a swagger, and yeah, there's a lot of comments about on Twitter and whatnot about his attitude this morning, and it seems though he's now more concerned about devouring a combretum or a bush willow, and he's left the ladies alone for a while. But he's got to an age now where he's big enough to push around the females quite a bit. Still not big enough to sort of push around a really big Ellie bull, but he is getting to that stage, and I think he is going to be a magnificent animal in about 5 or 6 years. So I initially thought he's around 20, he might be a little bit older, probably between 20 and 25. So 5 or 6 years he'll be at sort of full size, and I think he'll be quite a force to be reckoned with then. Lovely even ivory that should grow quite nicely. Now we've had some wonderful close encounters with Ellies this morning, and Joel from the Big Apple is wondering, we said, just commenting that he thinks possibly elephants are the most dangerous for the tour guides and rangers and the guests out here, more so than the big cats. Joel, definitely I'd agree with you on that one. You have to be more careful with elephants. They are such big, strong animals, and it's very important to read their behavior and stay back a little bit sometimes. And fortunately, they will tell you how they feel with their body language, and a lot of the guides in this area have spent a lot of time with elephants, so by reading their body language you know which herds to approach and which to not. And said, I think this herd would generally normally be a very relaxed herd. The reason they're a little bit jumpy and they're showing some of that displacement behavior and whatnot is because of this young guy. And you could see he was walking around and he sort of nudged one of the females with his tusks earlier, and they're trying to move away from him. But definitely the animal you have to have the most respect for. Not to say you mustn't respect the other animals, but just because of their pure massive size, you have to be a little bit more careful with them. And as we are in the dry season and there's not too much nice green tender grass around, the elephants will feed a lot more on trees and bark, and specifically the cambium layer of a lot of the trees, and that cambium layer is the layer that transport nutrients and water from the roots of the tree up into the rest of the tree. And so the elephants will spend a lot of time stripping bark off trees at this time of the year. So as you can see, the bush behind us is very grey and quite sparse, not many leaves around. A lot of these trees are deciduous, so it means they lose their leaves during the winter, and Anna Marie and some others have been commenting on that it does look very dry and there's not that much for them to eat. There is still quite, and Liz as well from Wisconsin, and they are discussing that on Twitter at the moment. And we can see that there is still quite a lot of food for elephants. It's just that they have to travel greater distances between it. We can see the sun trying to break through the clouds just to the left of him. So there's due east. and it's important for the bush. As elephants, as I mentioned, I think yesterday on the sunset safari, elephants are one of the architects of the bushveld, and they are able to open up areas, or by not feeding in areas, they will sort of let areas become more dense. And as we're going into a dry cycle now, I think the elephants are going to open up areas a bit more, and that is good for other animals like zebra and wildebeest. Obviously not so good for animals like nyala and bushbuck, but that's why the amazing thing about the African bushveld is it goes through cycles, and we have gone through a very wet cycle, so the bush has built up quite nicely, and now we're going to go through a dry cycle where it's going to thin out for a bit. We'll leave him to chew on his bush willow, and we've got another. Can't see whether it's a bull or cow. We're definitely walking with a bit of attitude through here. Just going to stand by for a second. Just from the way it's walking, I think it could be another young bull. I can't really see it properly yet. I can just see the sort of movement. There to the left. You got him there, Andrew?
Nope.
Slightly, so zoom in a bit more. Left a bit. Left. There. Can't see whether it's a cow or a bull from here. And there's some youngsters there, so it could be a cow. Another section of the breeding herd. There's more than one elephant there. I can see 3 at the moment. But let's go check where I thought I saw Mr. Wrinkly Bottom's mother and see if we can find Mr. Wrinkly Bottom. Goodbye, big boy. So at this time of the year, sometimes the elephants can become a little bit stressed due to the lack of food or having to travel distances between food and water. And William from Rhinelander, welcome William, was wondering if it's true that elephants sometimes false feed while watching you when under stress. William, not so much false feeding. They sort of, as I do a lot of sort of displacement, they might break a branch and that they wouldn't normally feed on. Just to pretend that they're doing something or kick the sand while they do watch you. So that is true. I wouldn't call it false feeding, and quite often if they relax in that situation, they will calm down and start feeding again. So I think the rest of the herd will have moved down onto Drakensberger Road, so we're going to go there. And I'm just going to call this in on the radio for the other game drives, just in case anyone else wants to have a look at some elephants a bit later. Just double checking the tracks there. Stations, large number of involved on Drakensberger junction with Hippo Pools, slowly mobile south. There we go, the rest of the herd popping out. Yeah, just as I had hoped. We don't need to go bashing and crashing after them. A little bit of a fright there, that little guy. And here's the elephant that looked Oh, hello. Yes. I see you. We have a little bit of a traffic jam now. I'm trying to get to the rest of the herd that are further to the south. Yeah, thank you. This is the elephant that did look a little bit like Mr. Wrinkly Bottom's mom, but as I can see, it's not. Her tusks aren't as even, but there's still quite a lot of elephants up ahead, so not to say this isn't part of the larger herd that Mr. Wrinkly Bottom's in. So let's go on a little bit. I can see more elephants on the road up ahead. Hello, elephants. There's another female with nice long straight tusks up ahead. It looks very similar to Wrinkly Bottom's mother, but these tusks look even longer. Really long straight tusks on this female. Perfect example of her. And you guys might have heard me mention the word olifant or oliphant, and that is the Afrikaans word for elephants. So I've got a question for all you guys out there. Who knows what the Shangaan name for an elephant is? Who knows what the Shangaan name for an elephant is? You can send your answers through via email to questions@WildEarthTV, or you can use the hashtag SafariLive if you're on Twitter. Beautiful, long, thin ivory on this cow. So as we have a look at this elephant walking away from us, you can see a very prominent backbone sticking out there, or the spinal ridge. And Kathy from Nebraska and Katie from Nevada are wondering whether that's to do, why some have such a prominent one and others don't, and wondering whether that's to do with a lack of food. Well, normally you start noticing it far more in older animals. In the younger animals it's not as obvious. We're just going to sneak in a little bit closer while she destroys that weeping wattle. So back to that, you can see there, so in the older animals, as they, you start to notice that sort of very much more noticeable spinal, and especially in bigger animals, but with the younger animals and that, when it is less noticeable, they've still got a bit of growing to do. And also as they get much older, it is one of the signs that they are starting to lose condition, could be on their last sets of teeth. So it's very seldom you'll see an elephant feed off a weeping wattle or Peltiforum africanum during the summer months. They're probably not the most nutrient-rich tree around, but they are very important, being an evergreen during the dry season, and we'll see that the elephants do feed on them quite regularly at this time of the year. You can see here now, she's going to rotate that branch through her mouth to try to take off all the lovely bark and the cambium layer. You can see they don't really eat too many larger, or a lot of the bark that they pull off. They'll pull off some of the smaller branches that probably have a bit more nutrients in them that trees focusing on trying to grow, and they don't eat very much apart from that initial sort of bark thing, and then they'll just leave the rest down there. But unfortunately, I don't think this is Mr. Wrinkly Bottom's head. This cow looks very similar, but she's not, I don't think, as big as Wrinkly Bottom's mother, and the tusks are quite a bit longer. And some nice soft morning light breaking through the clouds. With a nice cow with some long ivory, not quite as even, moving past the front of us here. There we go, coming through. I'm going to have a chat with the other female. Here we go, a little tender hello between two adult females. You can see her smelling between the other female's legs. Might be checking if they're possibly in estrus. So we have it. There we go, going to head off to that Peltiforum. So while we're chatting and probably just look at there, going to work on that Peltiforum. So as we're chatting about estrus, Virginia from Kentucky was wondering, when a female elephant is in estrus, will she mate with a single elephant bull or with multiple bulls? They will mate with multiple bulls during their estrus cycle, and the bulls will fight fiercely for that right. We got another question from Zai about how do you age an elephant. So I've got a really nice little diagram in my book that shows us from the young how to age them. Once they become adults, until they get really old, can be quite difficult to age them. But if we have a look up until their adult stage, a really nice little diagram here on about how to age an elephant. And you can see an infant down there is about 1 year old. It can still fit under the mother's belly. And then There we go. A juvenile at about 2 years old, and sort of almost double the height, and the baby's back can sort of reach up to its mouth. And then an intermediate elephant, there we go, number C, at about 6 years old. And then B is over a sub-adult, sort of a teenager, 15, and then an adult, so probably with females from 20 onwards, or they do reach sexual maturity at around 15, 16, but they sometimes don't mate till they're a bit older. But there's a nice little thing. The way we just figure out how an elephant is older when it gets older is you'll start seeing depressions form on the skull, and that spinal ridge will start showing, and maybe a few ribs, and they'll start losing a bit of condition. And that's generally only when they're around 40, 45 on their last set of teeth. So these ellies are now heading off into quite a thick area with lots of drainage lines, and we've had such a wonderful view of them. I'm not going to harass them by bashing and crashing off the road with them. And I think Andrew and I are going to go back to our original plan to see if we can find any tracks of the Birmingham boys in the northeastern corner. But what a wonderful way to start this sunrise safari with Ellies. So we're going to go across to Commander Bond so he can give you an update about what he's been scurrying about doing, and we'll see you a little later.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Djuma, where I have found a deeply sort of disturbing sight of a bleeding marula tree. Do you see the blood, Viam? What do you think did this?
Something big.
Yes, with horns perhaps? This is what... This has definitely been done by a buffalo, and the buffalo, you often see them, especially that big herd of bachelors, with a sort of red covering on the boss, and what they come and do is rub on the tree like that. It gets very itchy on top, possibly because of those horn moths, which don't normally sort of come out until the buffalo are dead, but I think that their larvae probably, or the eggs probably irritate the top of the skull or the top of the horns, and that's what's gone on there. So buffalo has come and ground his head away against the top of that tree and caused a great bleeding on the marula tree. Now that won't do any lasting damage to the tree, but it's just quite interesting to see, because often we see the buffalo with this kind of red covering on the top of the boss and we wonder what it is. Well, that's what it is. So I'm afraid the search for Karula has again resulted in my coming up empty-handed. I walked the area flat, I drove the area flat, and there was no sign of her. I think she's probably still around there, you know, but there's so many difficult drainage lines that we can't drive in there we can hardly drive in there at all. I have walked around in there, but haven't come up with anything. So I'm sorry about that. I hope that doesn't leave any of you too devastated. I'm feeling slightly bereft that she has once again eluded me, but perhaps we'll come back here towards the end of the drive and see what we can find. We're going to carry on up here, head down towards a little open area called Impala Plains, and then probably just check what's going on in Arathusa, and that's basically the plan from here. I hope you're all having a marvelous morning. It is a very beautiful morning here, lovely and warm, not too sunny. So it's, regardless of Karula's sort of ghost-like qualities, it is a very great pleasure to be out here. Very quiet morning from a bird point of view, because I think of the cloud. They don't tend to sing too loudly when there's a bit of grey covering. But I would say that while we will definitely have one or two more cold snaps, the need for gloves and beanies and that sort of things are probably now over. And while we're driving along here, Marco, lovely question. Have I ever had an animal follow me while on safari? The young animals, Marco, quite often do follow us, especially young male leopards. I've had them kind of follow when I've been on foot, just curiously, not with any sort of malicious intent. And it's been, they're sort of my favorite. They often will do that. Young elephant bulls sometimes will follow the car. Then an elephant that is bent on sort of, if he's irritated, an elephant might try and track you. And that can be fairly terrifying. Thankfully it hasn't happened to me very often, but they can do that. If they're feeling irritated and they pick up your scent and they think maybe you're trying to follow them, then they can very easily track you. But no, nothing particularly hairy while on safari. Thanks, Marco. The kingfisher. He's going to fly, don't fly, don't fly, don't fly, don't fly. Oh, he's flown. You get him there, Viam? That is a striped kingfisher. Can you even see him? Oh, there he is. Yeah, striped kingfisher, everybody. And that is one of our smallest sort of woodland type kingfishers. We do get a couple of other smaller ones that live around the water. And that little fellow makes a lovely churring call. Distinctive of the sort of summer and spring. And he's also part of a group called the Halcyon kingfishers. Halcyon coming from the blue that's on his back. And I'll just show you a picture of the others. I'll show you the difference. So those are all the kingfishers there. Well, no, those are two of the kingfishers. We get both here. That's the giant and the pied. Neither of those are the Halcyon kingfishers. Then those are the Halcyon kingfishers. The woodland, the grey-headed, the mangrove, the brown-hooded, and the striped, not these ones. And they're called the Halcyon kingfishers because, well, their genus is Halcyon, and because of this blue color under the wings. So that's the striped fellow that we saw just now, and that's the brown-hooded, which is the most common one that we get out here. They look quite similar, but for the fact that the striped is much smaller. And then shortly to return, in fact, I can imagine him scudding through the drainage lines as we speak, like an F-16 on maneuver, is the woodland kingfisher, which is a very nice call after he arrives. He goes chip, starts in October, and by the time he leaves in April, the sound of his call is a little bit like having a dentist drilling into your skull. So strident is the incessant calling of the woodland kingfisher. It was very nice when he first arrives, because he does truly mean that summer's near, and my birthday is also near by the time he arrives. So that was the striped kingfisher. On we go. Reattach my ear. I think when you joined us there was quite a lot of bird song. There were a couple of babblers calling and a grey-headed bushshrike, which makes a very sort of ghostly... How's that going? Liam's looking pretty unimpressed, I have to tell you. And also a crested lark or two. I always quite like these cloudy mornings because the light is diffused for that much longer. Around about this time of the year, before the rains come, the light gets very white and very hot very quickly, and that just means that it looks a bit burnt out, especially with the greyness that is the bush. So when there's a bit of cloud in the sky, it tends to yellow the light a bit, warm it, and make it look quite a lot prettier. It just gives everything a slightly golden sheen. So now we're coming into the clearing, and the reason that it is clear here is because the soil type has changed slightly. and it just means that there's something that is holding clay in this area. And that's why there are a lot of wari bushes, which is the greenery that you can see around you now. And for the first time the other day, I mentioned that giraffe had helped Scott find shadow yesterday. For the first time, I saw that giraffe eat some of this guarri, and I've never seen anything eat the guarri before. While we're driving along, thinking about breakfast perhaps, Liam is always thinking about breakfast. Liam, what is that? Is that a leopard track? Sorry. Do you mind just having a quick look?
It's on the floor.
Yeah, it's on the floor as opposed to flying.
Oh yeah, you know,
Okay.
very
Old hyena track, sorry about that. While we're driving along, thinking about breakfast, Janet, nice question from you about fruit trees and how many different kinds of fruit trees do we get here. Janet, it's difficult to put a number on it, but the most obvious ones for us to eat are the guarri bush, make very nice red, sort of purple-like blackberries almost. Marula fruit, of course, very important source of fruit. The white berry bush, Flugia virosa, also very nice, sort of, they taste like sweet peas almost. And they'll come out, this all comes out in the summertime. And then another nice one, of course, is the sour plum, common sour plum, which is a big orange fruit, which when you bite into it is very sweet, and then it turns immediately sour. But what's interesting about lots of the fruit that we get out here, Janet, is that the pith is very shallow. So the seed is normally very large, and I suspect most fruits were originally like that until they were sort of selectively bred to make the big fruits that we commercially buy. So there's not a lot of fruit. You've got to eat a huge number of individuals in order to get a mouthful of actual pulp. But not much going on in the winter months. In fact, no, none. Driving along thinking about giraffe that we were talking about, and the elephants that Brent was seeing, you were saying, is it true that an elephant is able to reach higher than a giraffe? It is actually true, yes. Not all the time, but they can, a big bull can reach higher than a giraffe. So the tallest giraffe is about 4 meters tall, which is pretty tall really, but just over 12 feet, 12 or 13 feet. And then an elephant, certainly in places like Mana Pools where they're trying to get the pods of anna trees, they will stand on their back legs and reach up higher than a giraffe can get. Yeah. So they can in fact reach higher than some giraffe, but they'd have to be a pretty big elephant. It is very amusing to see an elephant try and stand on his back feet, I must say. Lots of elephant tracks around here that are quite fresh. And Jim, I think I preempted your question there, Jim Butler, about whether the elephants will rear up on their hind legs. Yes, I mean, rear up sounds like quite a sort of horse-like activity, but they definitely do sort of pivot up onto their hind legs. And we've seen it happen here, not so much with the adults, but with that little wrinkly-bottomed calf. He likes to stand up on his back legs, which is very funny to see. But absolutely, Jim, they do that. Fairly fresh elephant tracks heading through this area. So perhaps I shall be lucky, or we shall be lucky. I have to stop and have a little listen. Stop and have a listen, Liam. See what we can hear. Some rattling testiculars. Psst, 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 psst. Look over there. Liam, there's a roller killing something, whacking something on top of a little tree. There, you got it. What is it? Can you see what it is? I think it's a little frog.
What's a mouse? A frog, yeah.
It's a little frog. What on earth? I think it is a little frog. Now the reason he'll be doing that, everybody, is that a frog will exude sort of toxins from the skin. Not any in this area, nothing like they do in, say, South America, where you can get some pretty toxic frogs. Rubbing your arrowhead, for example, on these ones wouldn't do much damage. So what that roller is doing is banging away the toxins before he swallows it. Sort of cleaning off the carcass, if you like. Probably also smashes the bones, which is probably quite an easy. It's not a grey tree frog, apparently. That was one of the thoughts that it could be. It's much too small. Looks like a little sand toad, actually. That is fascinating. So he's beating it. Remember also that these birds don't have teeth. They do have a gizzard, which is a sort of muscular stomach, which they fill with stones, which helps them to sort of grind up what they eat. But the more broken up the bones can be by the time he swallows it, the better. Well, clearly not satisfied with the level of deadness that his prey is at the moment. Incredibly skillfully tossing it about there. This is wonderful. I'd love to get a bit closer, everybody, but I think that he would fly away very quickly. We could try, but I think we would disturb him, and unfortunately his little frog dinner will probably be dropped. But isn't it interesting how he's flipping it over and over? He knows exactly which pieces of it he still has to clean off. And I can actually hear it. I can hear the little slap. Shame, poor little frog. Saw a wonderful cartoon once of a frog in exactly the same situation. I'm sure many of you have seen it too, except it was with a heron, not a roller. And as the heron was about to swallow the frog had reached round and closed the heron's throat with his hands. The caption being, "Never give up." Well, I think that frog's probably well beyond that point. There we go. Come on, swallow it now. Can you hear it, yeah?
Yeah, well. Maybe he has bitten off more than he can chew.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on the quality of that jape.
There you go.
There it goes. Can you imagine having to swallow that whole? That's why, everybody, you can see why the gizzard is such an important part of the bird's digestive system. So down, the frog is now stuck in his throat, but it will go into that muscular stomach called the gizzard, and there'll be some stones in there, and they'll help grind up that frog for digestion. I don't think that that little bird is going to have to eat for the next little while. Wonderful sighting. Has he swallowed it yet?
No, feet still dangling from the mouth.
Feet still dangling. Go on, swallow. Now he can still regurgitate that, of course, should something decide that it wants to attack him. But once it goes down, I'm really glad we don't have to eat like that. Can you imagine having a fillet steak stuck halfway down your throat? I have had that situation, of course, but that's because I have bad table manners. And thank you, John, for your comment. You said lions are vicious, and you think perhaps this roller might be even more vicious. Well, at least he's not fighting with his friends, but he certainly would. That's hilarious. He just cannot get it down. I wonder if he'll actually swallow it, or if he'll bring it back up again. What do you think, Ron? And absolutely he is tenderizing that frog. Lovely comment. Although it is now tenderized, but perhaps not sufficiently. He will probably be a roller that sits quite a lot on that very perch, or perhaps the perch next to him is another dead tree, and there are a couple of exposed areas around here, and a roller hunts from a perch a bit like a drongo does, but as you can see there, I mean, the drongo wouldn't eat something like that. It would be a bit big. They hunt on the ground, so they will wait for something, a grasshopper or a frog or something like that, to walk around on the ground, and then the roller will leap down, grab it, and fly back up to a perch to eat it. There's a drongo, which will hunt from a similar kind of a perch, tends to hawk insects, so things that come up into the air, they'll nip down and grab quickly. They've got a sort of that special forked tail designed for amazing maneuverability in small spaces, whereas the roller is not quite so well designed for maneuverability. He's not making any progress with that frog, you know. It's as stuck in his throat as it was when he first tried to swallow it.
You could wait a few hours and then swallow the rest.
Yes. I don't think they can do that like a snake. It must be almost impossible to breathe. So we're looking at this roller eating a frog. It could, of course, be a toad. I think it probably is a small toad. And Heidi, you were asking, you're from Germany, and you want to know, do we get toads here? Yes, we do. We get some very beautiful toads here. In fact, this time of the year, before the rains, it's probably more likely that that's a toad than a frog. But we get lots of different kinds of toads and frogs. I'll try and find you a picture of the one that I think it is. While we wait for it to finally swallow its breakfast, I'll try and find you a picture of what kind of a toad I think it is. It's a very little one. So some of the common toads we get here are the eastern leopard toad, for example, and that is definitely not an eastern leopard toad. Eastern leopard toads are much larger than that. So these are some of the things that we get here. So what I think it probably is either a little bushveld rain frog, there, that little fellow there. You can see very short back legs, very short back legs, and I think that may well actually be what it was, perhaps not a toad. So I'm going to go with bushveld rain frog. I think that's probably what it was. But the other very small frogs that we get with small legs or small toads are, I wonder if this book actually even has a picture of it. There, the northern pygmy toad, number 4. He's a tiny little thing. He's only about that big. Oh, sorry, we need to quickly go across to a hyena that is about to have a drink with Brent. I will see you just now. Sorry about that.
Welcome back, everyone. Andrew and I found this hyena and it was walking towards Buffelshoek Dam, so we rushed ahead, and here we go. Very fat hyena having a drink and cooling off in the shallow muddy part on the eastern edge of the dam. Hyenas love water, and you often find them when in the hot months sleeping in pans, exactly like this one is doing here. And the reason it came to this top corner of the dam and not where the deeper sections are is that just in case there might be a crocodile. So it's a little bit safer there, more difficult for a crocodile to approach it sneakily. But when we saw it, looked like she was jogging towards the dam, so we rushed ahead. Definitely looks like she's had a good feed recently, very big tummy. I'm sure that nice cool muddy water will help her bring her temperature down. I'm going to just sneak a little bit closer and see how she's still testing the wind there with her nose. Don't want to disturb, so I'm staying a little bit far away and high, and not driving directly at the animal, but driving alongside, away from it, so a non-threatening sort of position. Hello. So you look quite comfortable then. Oh, spreading out the back legs, getting that fat belly, some nice cool mud. Trying to find a comfortable spot for that belly. Still very alert. It spotted a francolin walking down towards the water. So quick look, and then over that. I've actually even seen hyenas fast asleep in a mud puddle like this, with a big full belly just resting, enjoying the cool water and the cool mud. Also give them a little bit of respite from flies. There we go, now we have a two-toned hyena. You can see that belly. So fortunately, I think that mud's quite smelly, but we're upwind of it, so we're not smelling any of the mud. And I think combined with how a hyena normally smells, it'd be quite a vile combination. We've got a little blacksmith plover and a 3-banded plover behind the hyena. Might take advantage of any little insects, whatnot, that might be disturbed by the hyena wading through the mud. You can see that almost perfect round circle there. That's probably from where a buffalo bull's been lying and made that sort of little pond that the hyena is now in the middle of. There we go, a bit deeper than the initial puddle. So if we have a look at that hyena's ears and sort of lack of scars, Rena's made the comment that it's quite a young one. Rena, I'd agree. If we look at the ears especially, the flies haven't sort of bitten it to pieces, and there hasn't been, it doesn't look to be too many fighting scars on the face. Trying to find a deeper spot where it can get more of its body under the water. Digging up with a little bit of dirt for the back legs. Sufficiently cool. Very fat belly. Doesn't look like it's pregnant, just looks like it's had a good feed. Okay, well, let's move around. We'll try and stay with it as long as possible. So we had a look at that hyena drinking a little earlier before it decided to move, and it's jogging off now. Zai, welcome Zai, thanks for another question. Would like to know, do they drink like cats or dogs? I think they drink like hyenas, Zai, but probably more similar to dogs, just judging from the way they lap. So coming back in the exact same, going back the exact same direction when we first saw hyena coming from. Maybe there's a carcass there, so we will try stay with the hyena. They're really difficult to follow in comparison to sort of lions and leopards, because they move at quite a bit higher speed, and they have incredible stamina and disappearing into the thickets there. Lost sight. I'm going to try a loop around. So I'm not going to be able to stay with that hyena while it moves through that block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to guess where it's going, and I'm going to move around where the next road intersects that drainage line. So while we were with those elephants a little bit earlier, I asked you guys a question on what was the Shanghai name for an elephant, and it seems like lots of you got it right. And on Twitter it was, oh, hang on, sorry guys, thought I saw that hyena still moving parallel to us, but on Twitter it was John, Angie, Suzanne, and on email was Jordan, Raisa and MJ who got it right. Well done. It is in Ndlovu. So not in Ndlovu. Ndlovu is the Zulu, and the Zulu spelling, and Shangaan is in Ndlovu. So a little bit different, but pronounced very similarly. Andrew, where do you think this hyena is going? I know we haven't found the den for a while, so maybe heading back towards the den. Has gone into this massive block here. Guys, I'm gonna go stand by on top of this hill here, and sometimes we do have bad signal in this little dip here, so I'm not gonna go all the way in. I'm just gonna wait 5 or 6 minutes, see if the hyena pops out. Also gives us a chance to listen, to see if there's anything else about. So the hyena's general direction was down this thick area to our right here, but it could have obviously changed direction and headed further to the west. But we'll just spend a few minutes here waiting. So while you guys were with James, I believe Marco had a question for James. Has he ever had an animal follow him out of curiosity? And so I have as well, so I've got a little interesting story. I've actually been followed by hyenas out of curiosity while walking on foot, and by elephant, and by rhino, strangely enough, and then more out of a sort of get out of my area by buffalo bulls. I've had to climb a few termite mounds and trees to avoid them, but the animals do sometimes follow you out of curiosity. They're just wondering what you are, and certain circumstances when they're definitely sure you're not a threat, they can sometimes follow you out of curiosity. Actually, probably the most interesting one I've had follow me was on the reserve where my parents live, and I took my little brother walking into lions for the first time, and the big male lion followed us back to the vehicle for about 500 meters, but staying about 60-70 meters behind us, and that was a little bit scary, but still very interesting. He didn't show any sort of signs of aggression or stalking behavior, but he was just checking what we were and where we were going. And in that area, those lions aren't walked on foot as often as here in the Sabi Sands, so probably just a little bit of curiosity. It was also quite late in the afternoon, so he was getting moving, and we had parked next to one of the water holes when we started tracking them, so they came and actually drank at that water hole a little bit later. But that was very, very interesting. My little brother found it a little bit scary. We actually had been charged by him on foot earlier, so it was a bit of a fun. I love being charged by lions, but a lot of people consider me a little bit strange in that sort of area. It tends to get the adrenaline going. Really know you're alive when that big male lion goes at you. So on the subject of animals following you, Reese said she's never really heard of elephants following people, but have I ever had one follow me back to camp? Never back to camp. I have had them follow me for a short distance through the bush and whatnot, but never sort of extended periods for many kilometers back to camp. But not to say that it's impossible. Well, it looks like the hyena has changed its direction. We're going to have one quick look through here. If we don't see anything, we'll move on. So while we're sitting here listening to the bush and hoping for that hyena to pop out again, Terry from Santa Ana was wondering which is the easiest animal to hear at a distance, which is the hardest animal to hear at a distance. Well, Terry, easiest is probably male lions when they decide to vocalize, or lionesses when they decide to vocalize for territory. And you hear that roar echoing through the bushveld. And then from the other sort of animals, you do hear elephant quite easily when they're feeding. They can be very quiet, but you do hear them breaking branches and that. Probably the harder animals to hear, well, it's quite a difficult question. I assume we're talking about sort of your more high-profile species, not like impala, who are very difficult to hear unless they're ratting, or inyala or kudu, who only really hear them when they're alarm calling at something. But I'd say probably the hardest to hear is cheetah when they are doing their contact call. It's very soft and almost bird-like. It's almost like a bird-like chirp. And even those of you who were with us on a sunrise safari a while ago, it was the first time I saw cheetah and we heard them growling. Even their growl sounds more like a purr. It was not a very loud growl. And so I'd probably say cheetah is the hardest of the sort of high-profile species to hear. Leopard, we've all heard that wonderful rasping cough roar that they do. And wild dogs, when they get separated, make a wonderful sort of woo call, as it's a contact call between them, a sort of a woo, 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 woo. So you do hear them, and also when they're feeding, that exciting giggles almost around a kill. And also hyena, when they are calling or excited around a carcass, make very audible noises. So I think out of all those sort of predators and high-profile species, definitely cheetah is probably the hardest to hear. Okay, well, no sign of the hyena. We're going to meander on. We saw that wonderful young elephant bull who looks like he's going to be a monster in about 5 or 6 years. And Brenda from Pennsylvania was wondering, what is the biggest elephant I've seen? And Brenda, the biggest elephant I've seen actually had a name, and it's Mantinti, which means earrings in Zulu, and it was in a place called Tembe Elephant Park, which, according to the papers and stuff I've read, has the largest bodied elephants in Africa, and also some of the biggest tuskers in Africa. And it's on the border of South Africa and Mozambique, and it is a park owned by the Tembe royal family, a Zulu royal family. And there was a very famous elephant bull who passed away not that long ago called Isilo, who was the largest elephant bull in the world at the time. Didn't fortunately get to see him, but I did see one of the other up-and-coming big bulls in that area. And he was absolutely monstrous, about 4 meters at the shoulder, and had a really lovely set of ivory. Got some fantastic photographs of him while I was visiting Tembe Elephant Park, probably beginning of last year, but I haven't been down that while. I have seen some incredibly large elephants in the Kruger. When I worked in the eastern part of the Kruger, we used to get a monster bull. We had one incredibly long tusk. But definitely the biggest elephants I've seen have been in Tembe. We're just checking around now, and we've checked a vast section of the eastern areas and no luck with any tracks. And I heard recently that the Birminghams actually went further south and east, so away from our eastern boundary. We're on the northern east side, and so we're going to go check. There's this myriad of drainage lines that sometimes the leopards spend quite a bit of time in. So we're just going to loop along here very slowly, see if there are any tracks. If we get no luck here, we're going to duck down towards the Mwachi drainage and check back around towards Djuma camp.